Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be talking about a specific subject that is highlighted in a couple of the new resources we have, and that is coffee. In front of me you might see I have some different coffee tools, I have some coffee beans, and there's some really lovely little coffee farming toys that our own Connie brought back from Colombia. And so yeah, I thought I would do a 3-part series on coffee because there's just so much information to cover. But even so, this is just going to be an introductory look into coffee and coffee science, and I highly recommend checking out the new books we have, which are the World Atlas of Coffee. This book talks a lot about regions and farming. We also have the Barista's Guide to Coffee, which talks about coffee history, as well as the processing and roasting techniques used on coffee beans and brewing. So drinking coffee at home, if you're interested in different techniques and learning a little bit more about this product we all enjoy, then I highly recommend checking these out. So for part 1, I'm going to start with just a brief history of coffee. There are many myths surrounding coffee and how it was first discovered by humans. One is that an Ethiopian farmer came upon a group of goats and thought they were acting peculiar, a little bit hyper. And from there, he was able to deduce that they had eaten this mysterious plant and were displaying a different type of behavior. Another popular myth is that a man from Yemen traveling through Ethiopia spotted a group of birds who were doing the same thing. They had just eaten from this plant and they were acting very peculiar. Regardless of these two separate myths, we've come to understand that coffee and the effects of the coffee plant were discovered in Ethiopia. The earliest credible evidence of humans interacting with the coffee plant is from the 15th century, and that is when some Yemen monks would actually drink coffee so that they could stay alert during their nighttime devotions. So after a slow discovery in Africa, coffee began to travel west into Europe, and it was also at the same time traveling east into Asia. A little bit of information about the plant itself. The coffee plant traces its origin of genus back to a plant known as Coffea. Within the genus, there are over 6,000 species of tropical trees and shrubs. Experts estimate that there are about 25 to 100 species of coffee plants. And while a lot of people would recognize a roasted coffee bean, such as this one, not a lot of people will probably recognize the actual coffee plant, which is something that looks a little bit more like this. So coffee is actually a fruit. If that's new information, there you go, coffee's a fruit, and we also call them coffee cherries. So like I just showed you, this is a photo of coffee cherries. Coffee plants can grow up to 30 feet tall, and they will grow in a cycle. So it's not uncommon to see a plant that has coffee cherries in the green stage, the partially ripened stage, and the fully ripened stage. It can take nearly a year for coffee cherries to mature and up to 5 years to reach the full fruit potential. So there are 2 very important species in the coffee world. Those are Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is descended from the original coffee trees that were discovered in Ethiopia. These trees produce a fine, mild, and aromatic coffee, and they represent about 70% of the world's coffee production. The beans are flatter and more elongated, and they have a lower percentage of caffeine. On the world market, Arabica coffee brings in the highest prices. And this is because a lot of Arabica coffee is grown at a higher altitude, and it's generally between 2,000 to 6,000 feet above sea level. Another important factor is that the temperatures of the plants must remain mild and ideally in an environment of 59 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, with about only 60 inches of rainfall a year. So these plants are quite particular and where they're grown is going to be a smaller plot of land. So this is why these coffee beans have a higher price and are sold at a higher price. They're more coveted in the coffee industry. So while these trees are hardy, a heavy frost will kill them. Arabica trees are very costly to cultivate because they have these ideal terrain, and they're often located in areas that are harder to access. Also, the high price is due to the fact that these trees are more disease prone, and they require a ton of additional care and attention. Within Arabica, there are many different types of varieties. So the second species I'm going to talk about is called Robusta. You may have heard of Robusta. It is grown in Central and Western Africa, parts of Southeast Asia, including Indonesia and Vietnam, and in Brazil. The Robusta coffee bean is primarily used in blends and for instant coffees. The Robusta tree is hardier and more resistant to disease and parasites, which makes it easier and cheaper to cultivate. It has the advantage of being a stronger plant, so it can withstand colder temperatures, more rainfall, and it usually temperature-wise sits between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So because of this, it can grow in many different places, including in lower terrain, which is easier to access. So compared with Arabica, Robusta beans produce a coffee which has a distinctive taste and about 50 to 60% more caffeine. So just think of a really dark instant coffee and the taste, that very bold taste you get with an instant coffee, that's probably coming from a Robusta species. So that is just the end of part one. I hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to do a little introductory into the actual coffee plant. Next week, I'm going to be talking about areas of growth, and that's going to include coffee agriculture and farming, as well as this idea of green buying and direct trade. From there, I'm going to be talking about roasting and brewing, and I might even, if you guys would like to know, bring in some examples of how to brew at home. If you have any specific questions to do with coffee or making coffee at home, just write something down below, and I really hope you enjoyed this series. I'm looking forward to doing the second and third portion, and I'll talk to you then. Bye.